Hey everyone, welcome to a very special thing I'm uploading here to the Constitutionals feed, RSS feed. I should probably plan out what I was going to say before I said anything. This is Chad White. I'm the host of the Constitutionals. And of course, I'm the host, of the website cpluscomedy.com. Whole bunch of stuff there. Go check it out. But today we're here to talk about Ryan Singer's new album, Free Love, that has come out about 2 weeks ago at this point, which is entirely my fault at the point of me uploading this interview. I sat down with Ryan over the phone and we had a nice long chat about his album and the way he does comedy. And I think he's a really funny guy. You might have seen him on Marin, and he has his own podcast, Me and Paranormal You. He tells these, and I wanted to tell him this before. I don't think I said it to him, but he has these nice long jokes that are just very world building, and they really set up his character. Whereas there's a lot of comedians who are set up punchline. This guy likes to sit down and really extrapolate the comedy from whatever he's saying for about 5 minutes long, and it's great. He's a very funny guy. And also, Free Love, the album, is free everywhere, so definitely check it out. It's very fun. It's very funny. And he's just doing a different brand of comedy in a world filled with hate that's, in the news and stuff like that. And that's actually how we started our conversation. And we started talking about the news. It was we're dating ourselves at this point. I'm probably just going to leave it in because it's better that way. That's how I do my interviews. We talked about the hurricanes that were battering the South, because I am in the South currently in Atlanta. So there we go. There's that. That's a little truth about me. So like I said, Ryan Singer's album, Free Love. It's free everywhere. Check him out. He's a funny guy. Now, hear this, the interview. By the way, like I said, we were just talking about some stuff, and we were talking about stuff of the day that happened. And then, of course, Kanye recently talked to Trump that morning. So we were just discussing that. So I decided to, cut out a little bit of that conversation because it dated us. But we'll be coming in the middle of that. And that's the reason why I'm interjecting here. Okay, back to the interview.
I mean, I guess when we put all of our hopes and our dreams into our celebrities, we become led down a path that might be somewhat predictable.
That's very true. And then that's why, we need comedians like you out there just skirting along and telling us the good things to laugh at.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, I don't know when, the sea change in me happened. It was probably, around 2008 when I was in a relationship with this woman, and I started to realize that I was getting funnier because I was happier. So about 10 years ago now, and then that's when that myth of you have to be miserable and bitter and angry to be funny as a comedian, that's when it first started to die for me. And I think more people are kind of coming around to that recently in the last few years, and hopefully a lot more will in the next few years too. But, because there used to be the old line, nobody wants to see a comic up on stage telling everybody how great their life is. That's not funny. And I've been really trying to prove that wrong, in the last few years at least. No, that can be funny. Because even when things are going great, there's still, even if you're just happy to be alive, it doesn't mean that you don't still have roommates at an age where we've been told you're not successful if you still have roommates. And you know what I mean? It's like this, I bought into that lie for so many years, this Western view of if you don't have luxury, you're a failure. And it's man, that's screwed up. It's such a flawed way of looking at the world, especially when you consider if you travel outside of our country, just to have your own bedroom is luxurious, let alone access to hot water constantly on demand, my own car, cell phone, computer, Wi-Fi. I mean, I'm living like a king. I definitely live. I don't know who said it, but they were so right. They said if you take the average person in the United States and compare the luxury and the opulence that they have access to compared to a king or a queen in the 11th century or even later, it's we dwarf dwarf like the opulence they have. But yet we're considered to be struggling. We're considered to be, failing and not really making it. And then it's just like, I mean, sure, it's all a matter of perspective. Mm-hmm. But the idea that, I bought into this lie that if I don't have a house and a guest house or a vacation home and like the nicest car, that I'm not making it it's so poisonous. And so, I'm trying to break free from all of that, and it's a day-to-day struggle. But, there's real joy and real, happiness that can be found once you realize, like, just how lucky you are to be alive, even if, it feels like the world is burning down around us sometimes when Kanye has lunch at the White House. It's like, okay, yeah, but like, what can we do? What kind of change can I make in the world to get it to where I want it to be? And if we can laugh at ourselves, I think that's a good first step.
Yeah, and that kind of mirrors what you're trying to do with free love, because when you put it out for free and you've got all of these grandiose and then also similarly small bits up there, and they're sharing this entire perception that, yeah, everything is going to be all right in the end.
Yeah, and I think everything is definitely going to be all right in the end, as long as everyone doesn't just sit back and wait for it to be all right. That's a big component of. I know there's a lot of people in the New Age woo world or the paranormal world that I find myself occupying a lot of time with or around, who kind of think that, like, well, as long as I have my crystals, everything's going to be okay. And there is a certain, there's an inherent laziness in all of us. And it's difficult to remain engaged and activated all the time. But at the same time, actively spreading love is, to me, better than just sitting at home alone, like trying to love, which is still a good start, but you have to actively be a pacifist, which is what I think that I strive toward. Because I don't believe in violence. I don't believe in, anger. I mean, I think anger can be used as a tool, but I don't think it's like hitting the hate pipe. Anger is kind of like, crack. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it'll get you jazzed up, and it might, get you juiced up for like a very short period of time. But love is more like, a healthy diet, or a bunch of good vitamins. It's like sustained energy over a long period of time that's better for you in the long run. Even though hate might peak you higher, but it's like, yeah, we have to be actively loving. And it's tough. I mean, it's hard enough when you're on the road driving, let alone when you feel like, the government is institutionalized racism and misogyny and with everything that's been happening, it seems like the hits just keep coming, and it's very complex. But at the same time, I think we can boil it down simply enough to be like, do I operate from love or do I operate from fear? And if I'm operating from fear, that means I'm scared of letting people in, whether it's into my own heart or whether it's into my country. Like, I'm going to build a wall around myself and around the country. Or do we operate with love, meaning like, come in, you need help, I love you, we're all connected. And sure, I'm making myself more vulnerable when I do that, on both ways. But I think it's the only way for us to move forward.
How did you decide to put such big ideas onto this, your fourth album?
Well, I don't know if it was a conscious decision as much as it just kind of organically occurred to what I was writing about and what I enjoyed performing on stage. I've always really loved the idea of trying to put a big idea into a small thing, like a joke. And I mean, for me, the number one purpose of doing stand-up comedy is to make someone laugh. And I think it's a real added bonus if you can make them think about something, right? But if that becomes, when that starts becoming the number one focus, you definitely start losing the laugh. But so I don't know if it was just like something that like organically, and of course I'm just like anybody else. I would enjoy it if people like agreed with me. You know what I mean? Like we all enjoy that. But to me, a laugh is probably the biggest confirmation of, okay, I get it. It doesn't mean I necessarily agree with what you're saying, but I understand what you're saying. And that's what a laugh signals to me. Like, okay, I understand your point of view. It doesn't mean I have to agree with it. And that's a conversation to me, which is something you could argue is really lacking nowadays. A joke and then a laugh. That's a conversation. That means people are listening to each other.
So how was it a conscious decision to keep the album as, physically lengthy as it is? Like, it's got 15 tracks, which is well over an hour, compared to some other stand-ups who keep them pretty short and maybe around 40 minutes long.
Yeah, I've always loved the idea of it being a full hour, if not longer, when it comes to an album. It's kind of like, I'm 42, so I'm of a certain age to where I just love the idea of getting, lost in for an hour. You can, get lost for an hour in your car or taking a hike or something like that. But for me, the goal for me is to always have 60 minutes of comedy for people when I release an album. And, so I've been kind of roughly around that, I think, on the first 4 albums. But yeah, to me, that's a full album. But like, that doesn't mean other people that 40 isn't a full album. That's still an album, for
right.
Sure.
I've heard you on Marin's podcast before, and it got me thinking, like hearing you now especially, and definitely listening to the album earlier today, I'm thinking you could basically have your own podcast that's, either short form or long form, and you could just talk for half an hour and really just get your ideas out there, because I think you have a lot to say.
Well, I appreciate that. I know on the paranormal podcast I have, it's called Me and Paranormal You, I had for a while been doing something I called 30-year bonuses, where it was basically research projects and of like subject matter or concepts that came up in the conversations I was having with people. Anywhere from, doing research on like the history of crystals or, modern magic, or, and things like that. And some of those vary in length from half an hour to, some of them are over an hour. And that's when I didn't realize I could talk that much about this stuff with no one else there until I started doing that. But it actually really influenced like the way my comedy went too. Doing research and talking to these people for the last nearly 5 years now about all this paranormal or esoteric or kind of new age woo, as some people like to call it, stuff has really influenced like the material I started developing, because it's a real area of passion for me when it comes to like aliens, ghosts, all this kind of stuff.
You said in 2008 you were funnier when you were happier. When you were happy, how long did that take to translate to when you went up on stage? Like, was it a shift in your perspective of comedy, or did it take a little bit longer in order to do that?
Yeah, it definitely took time. When I first started stand-up, I was real angry. A lot of my material came off that way. I should say it like that. I was in a period of time where I was rejecting God, kind of shedding that old skin of Catholicism. I had some relationships that had ended where I had thought myself to be like mistreated pretty badly by the behavior of the person or the people I had been dating, and just kind of like treated as lesser than. And I think that really was shining through in the material I did. But then, around 2008 is when I start to realize, like, it's all about how my perspective and how I'm framing it. Like, those people would have a different perspective on how that relationship was. And maybe they felt that I treated them lesser than. You know what I mean? So it was all a matter of perspective. And that's when I really started to realize, like, you can take control of your frame of mind. There's that famous saying, and I don't know who said it, but you can't control, the only thing you control in this life is how you react to things. That's the only control you have. And that really resonated with me the first time I heard it. And so slowly but surely, I started to try to figure out how to not, have a victim in all of my jokes, if that makes sense. Because, in angry comedy, there's always a victim. Like, who's the person that you're getting a laugh at the expense of, or the thing that you're getting a laugh at the expense of. And that's not to say that doesn't still slide in or come into play in my current comedy. But, for the most part, it was a slow transformation trying to figure out how to get a laugh without screaming, or, like being mad at something. So it definitely was a process.
Yeah, I definitely understand the victim aspect. Because like sometimes I'll see a comedian and they'll tell a joke about somebody, a big celebrity like a Bieber or a Kardashian, and I think, what are you getting away from that? What are you getting from that? It's something that I think we should have evolved past, because it's just it's not conducive to what comedy should be if it's a takedown.
Yeah, definitely, and I'll tell you, it's big in comedy right now, especially right now. I mean, the roast, the idea of the comedy roast, that's like never been more popular in the history of comedy that I can tell. And I'm not a historian necessarily, but I'd like to think I know a little bit about the history of stand-up. And I know the Dean Martin roasts were widely popular, and the Friars Club and all that kind of stuff. But like the idea of like roasting and takedown is really popular in comedy, and I've never really gotten into it. And that's not to say that there isn't some skill, because there definitely is a high level of skill in being really good at roasting someone. That's just never been my thing. I've never been one who enjoyed it. I've never been one who like even enjoyed trying to do it. But I think sooner or later, like, it's a phase, and like, maybe sooner or later, then, a couple years from now, people will be like, you know what, we've had it with, making fun of everybody and like destroying people comedically. Let's try to lift each other up. And, and when they do, there's comedy out there that's doing that. And I'd like to think I'm part of it.
And here's my final question. Is there anything that you're watching, or anybody you're watching, anything you're listening to, anything you're reading that you're just enjoying?
Oh yeah, there's so much. I'll tell you the documentary I watched the weekend I recorded this album, and I watched The Long Strange Trip. It's It's like the 4-part documentary on the Grateful Dead that is available on Amazon Prime, I believe. And it's about 5 hours of the story. And I used to love the Grateful Dead when I was younger, and I still love them now. But it talks about a big part of the documentary is about the modern artist. What are they concentrating on? Are they concentrating on becoming rich and famous, or are they concentrating on creating something? And at least that's what I took away from it, right?
Okay.
And to me, that's the big question when it comes to pursuing a life as a creative type. What do you really want? Do you want to create something that's special and unique to you, and whatever happens because of that is what happens? Or do you want a career, like first, and then if you get lucky, maybe you'll make something that is pretty creative and unique to you. So to me, the answer is very simple, and it's to live the creative life. That's more fulfilling. I mean, I'm old enough to remember watching all those VH1 Behind the Music, and they were all the same. Like, they were all like, artist, musician, starts from nowhere, has a dream, gets really rich and famous. Can't believe that doesn't make them happy, has a downfall, right? And then hopefully redeems himself later if there's a happy ending. But money and fame don't make you happy. And I've seen enough people burn their hands on the stove to where I'm not going to be grabbing. And if whatever I end up creating is a byproduct of that, I become famous and I become rich, then that's fine, as long as I'm not controlled by other people and what it is I'm creating. And to me, that's important. And it keeps you on the outside sometimes, but the outside of what? I mean, there's plenty of buildings I walk by that I probably wouldn't be allowed inside because I don't have a membership card or something like that. But I've never even thought about going into those buildings. I don't even notice that they're there. So I don't know. To me, it's like the pursuit of art, the pursuit of the craft that is paramount. And sure, it's great to be able to make a living and not have to worry about money. But that's not the number one. That's not the number one thing for me. And that Grateful Dead documentary really hit that home for me. I just recently read The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. That's an amazing short book for people who kind of want something that might be uplifting and motivational as well.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Ryan. I very much appreciate this. You're a really good person to talk to.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you, man. Thanks for helping promote the album, and I hope you enjoyed it when you were listening to it. And it's free, so if you know somebody else who might want it, pass it around. Send that link out.
Will do. Thanks so much. Thanks again.
Yeah, have a good day.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
Oh, isn't he a joy? I told you guys he's such a nice guy. I had a good time talking with Ryan, and you should definitely check out his album because he's a very funny person. And that's pretty much all I have to say about that. If you want to follow Ryan Singer, I'm going to look up his information right now, which I probably should have had ahead of time. If you want to follow him on Twitter, you can follow him at RySing over there on Twitter. He's got a lot of comedians that I follow who simultaneously follow him. So that's how I know he's a good person. He's a funny person. You can also head on to his website, ryansingercomedy.com, where you can see a whole portfolio worth of stuff. And there will also take you over. You can just click on the album for Free Love, click on it, and it'll take you right over there to a Dropbox where you can download every single one of the tracks. Isn't that wonderful? Isn't that lovely? I was singing that song before I started listening to the interview again. So definitely check it out. Ryan Singer, funny man, Free Love over there for free. Download it. Get into it. Okay, thanks for listening. All right.